In Chapter 5, we're going to talk about nonverbal messages, and this is Part 1. So, what you're going to know the characteristics of nonverbal messages, and you'll be able to describe them. You're going to know the types of nonverbal messages that we send using our body. You'll be able to identify those types. Nonverbal messages that we send through the use of space and time. And then you'll be able to employ strategies to improve your nonverbal communication as both a sender and as a receiver. The most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. And that's so true. You know, when you watch speakers as they deliver their messages, what's really important is what isn't being said. How are they presenting themselves? Do they look credible? Is their body language telling you that they are confident? Or are they fidgety and, their eyes are looking around? So I do believe I agree with this statement here. Do you? I like this one too. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. And the power of touch can be incredible. You can communicate a lot with the power of touch. Okay, some of the characteristics of nonverbal communication. First, it's inevitable. You can't not communicate nonverbally. You're going to, whether you are conscious of it or not. Nonverbals help us communicate our emotions. So you've got words, but how you say those words, paralanguage, and what your body says really convey emotions. Nonverbal communication is multi-channeled, so it's not just eye contact. It's how you hold your head, whether you nod with your eye contact. But sometimes nonverbal communication can be ambiguous. Ambiguous, meaning that maybe it's not crystal clear what you mean by your body language. Okay, types of nonverbal communication. Kinesics. This is the physical use of your body for nonverbal communication. Paralanguage has to do with how language sounds. Proxemics, proximity, it's the use of space. Chronemics has to do with time, how you use time as a nonverbal way to communicate. And then physical appearance. Let's talk about kinesics. These are the things that you do with your body. So for gestures, that's the movements, and we'll go through some examples in a moment, but the gestures are just, how you use your hands, for example, to make a point. I've got 3 points for you. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Those kinds of gestures. Eye contact is important. You can tell a lot about eye contact. It's used for a number of different things. It shows that you're paying attention. If you're in a conversation with a group of people, looking at someone may tell you that it's their turn to talk. And then facial expressions, right? If you're happy, if you're angry, those are all ways that you communicate with facial expression. And then your posture. So as you're in class, if you're all slumped over, hunched up, what is that telling the instructor about you? And then touch or haptics. Touching other people, hand on the shoulder, hand on the arm, or a hug. Those are all different ways that we communicate. Okay, gestures. So these are different types of gestures. If somebody comes up to you, you're doing something and goes, wait, what are they telling you? They're telling you time out, right? So an emblem is a gesture that substitute for words. So on the screen, I think that woman is saying stop, right? But if I do this, time out, I'm like, yeah, pause for a moment, okay? So an emblem is a gesture that can substitute for language. Okay, an adapter. So if I'm going like this, something's bothering me, I'm messing with my hair, and the example on the slide, and this guy's going, oh man. Sometimes I'll take my glasses off and I'll just go like this. Adapters are unconscious things that you do, usually unconscious, out of habit, but they are in response to a physical need. So the hairs in my eyes, I have to do that. You're like, oh, I'm worried, and I want to rub my temples. Those are adapters if it's in response to a physical need. Okay, an illustrator. Like I said, you have 3 points. 1, 2, 3. They're illustrating a point. In this slide, the person's talking about me. And now I'm talking about you. An illustrator. And the illustrators just really clarify the verbal message. Okay, an emphasizer. So here, he may not be making, points 1, 2, and 3, but he is going to emphasize the point he is making. President Bill Clinton used to do that a lot, put his hand up there. So if you're just using a gesture to emphasize what you're saying, this is important. That's an emphasizer. Now let's talk about eye contact. It's important in most cases to smile and make eye contact, but don't be creepy about it. Eye contact often regulates the flow of communication. It helps people take turns in a conversation. And you'll find that talkers, the speakers, hold eye contact about 40% of the time, while listeners hold eye contact about 70% of the time. Now, what is gaze avoidance? Well, that's when you're purposefully not making eye contact. So think of a situation in which you might purposefully not make eye contact. For me, 2 come to mind right away. 1, if you're in an elevator, you may not be, eye to eye. You are eye to eye with someone, but you don't really want to make eye contact. And the other one is if you're in class and the instructor asks a question and you really don't want to be called on. So you're going to avoid making eye contact and just look down in the hopes that you don't get called on. Okay, let's move on to facial expressions. So facial expressions, it's just, how your facial muscles are used to convey expression. Quite a variety of them in here. Now, some facial expressions are universal, others not so much. So happiness with a big smile, that's usually universal. A sad face, anger, and fear, those are universal. Okay, posture. Oh, every time I see one of these, I think I need to improve my posture. But here, she's sitting there, very straight back, and really, I think, is exuding confidence. That she's very confident in whatever she's doing or about to do. If you're sitting there slumped in your chair, you just don't look as confident. There we go. So now, in this case, his posture, he's leaning forward, right? The guy in the center, showing that he's interested in what the speaker has to say. Mirroring. If you're in a conversation with someone and you're in agreement, you may find yourself unconsciously mirroring their posture. So in this case, both of them have their arms crossed, both of them are leaning forward. And, it's one thing you might do if you're on a job interview. Mirror the posture, how the interviewer is sitting. That helps show that you're interested, you're in tune, you're of like mind. Touch or haptics. I remember this because I think on your phone they talk about haptics and it's, touch stuff. A handshake before COVID was, I don't know that it was universal, but it was certainly universal in the United States as a greeting. That it was a friendly greeting. If you put your hand out to shake hands and that person looked away, that was a strong message that they didn't want to get engaged with you. Touch can convey so many emotions. If somebody is upset, a hug can mean all the difference in the world to them. And just, holding hands. What does holding hands with a significant other convey? It means you care about them, right? So touch is another way that we communicate. Okay, and that will conclude part 1 of chapter 5.